Hey guys, Alatesh here. Wanted to share my thoughts on Anthem with you here. So unless you've been living under a rock, you're familiar with EA's Anthem, or excuse me, BioWare's Anthem, or is it EA BioWare? I don't know. Any which way, BioWare wrote it, EA published it, and here we have it. So it came out here recently, launched on the 22nd of February in the year of our Lord 2019, to somewhat mixed reviews. So really, I don't think looking around the sphere of reviews out there that has necessarily warranted the ratings that it's gotten, but in many cases, I can absolutely see how it managed to get there from here. So what we're going to take a look at is my opinion on the good, what needs improvement, the bad, and then a summary. And, the little teal deer at the front of it is that, the value proposition here, as it stands currently with a AAA $60 title, is not what I would ideally like to see. But moving along into the reasons there, let's take a look at the good stuff first. The first thing is the combat. In a looter shooter, you can reasonably expect that there's going to be some combat. That's the whole, shooter part of looter. If it were just looting, it wouldn't be any fun. The combat in Anthem feels exceptionally good. I find it to be fast. I find it to be fluid. The weapons are impactful. The Javelins are good at what they do. In my case, I spent most of my time playing in the Colossus just crushing the snot out of stuff, and it's a very, very satisfying experience. The Ranger is very solid at single target. The Colossus is good at being a meat shield. The Storm's good at raining down big, pretty, colorful death, and the Interceptor is good at just kind of whirligigging everything to death in a nice little melee round of arm slicing. So the skills on the Javelins feel useful, the weapons feel like they're reasonable, they're sane, they're well thought out, and I really, really do enjoy them, and I enjoy the combat side of things. Now, this combat is all conducted in probably one of the best looking areas that I've seen in a game yet in 2019. You were dropped smack dab in the middle of a lush biome. It looks like a forested, nice, cloistered area. I would say Mythical Mountains would be a good way to put it. Any which way, it's very, very lush, it's very damp, there's water around, you can hear the environment, the sounds of the area. Every area has its own particular series of sounds depending on whether or not there's water nearby, there's a lot of trees or overgrowth, any of those kind of things, which leads me to the point that sound design, in my opinion, is fairly well done here. I like the sounds of the weapons, I like the sounds of the combat, I love the sounds of the environments. Really the only gripe that I have when it comes to the look and feel of the combat sections of the game and the outdoor areas that I wish that it rained more and there were less sunny skies. The Anthem is apparently set to ravage everything and destroy all that everybody holds dear, but yet it's a beautiful sunny sky, and those two really don't mesh so well in my mind. And finally, on the look and feel, we have the weapon and character animations, which I believe are also very well executed. It all looks convincing, it all looks believable, and I generally really, really appreciate the look and feel of the combat portion of the game. Now that moves us on to the needs improvement section, which is going to be perhaps a little bit more lengthier than the good and high points of the game. So the first thing that jumps out at me is going to be the mission length. Now the strongholds that you fight, of which there are 3 of them in the game at the time of this recording, are of satisfying length. They'll take you, in my case, 20, maybe 25 minutes, depending on the party, depending on how fast you run through it, to get through. But it feels like you went out and you had an experience, with some friends or with some randos. You went and you did a thing, and there was lots of thing to be done. The rest of them, though, I tend to feel that they're very tiny experiences, and you factor in the fact that there are, in fact, loading screens in this game. Back when the game was originally announced a bunch of years ago, they said, yeah, it's going to be a big open worlder with no loading screens, so it to fall out with a bunch of long loading screens is kind of and I think it really, really disparages from the fact that the missions themselves are so short. Really, the missions are broken up into one of 4 different archetypes. You've got the defend the thing, collect the thing, shoot the thing, and the 4th one, which is probably wrapped up in one of those other ones beforehand. So there's really not a whole heck of a lot to do. Oh, there we go, there's the 4th one, turn a thing on. So you've got those 4 different mission types. Now, the problem is not necessarily that there are only 4 mission types, it's in how they are executed. In my playthrough of it, in my play of it, it feels as though those 4 are basically copy-pasted all over the place. You go and you defend the thing, and you have a trivial number of enemies without anybody specifically nasty. You have to go collect a thing, it'll be in a camp full of a trivial number of enemies without anything specifically nasty. At no point do you ever feel like your Javelin is capable of just laying waste to hordes and hordes of bad guys because they give you a half a dozen at a shot. And if they're not giving you a half a dozen at a shot, they'll all be clustered right together where you can just blow them all up in one fell swoop, which feels momentarily really, really fantastic, except you realize that you just got rid of the entire combat phase in about 3.5 seconds, and at that point it ends up being kind of bland. So really the fact that there's only those 4 types of missions, the fact that it all appears copy-pasted, the fact that your storyline missions are, with a couple of exceptions, within those archetypes of turn a thing on, gather a thing, shoot a thing, protect a thing, it really makes the game feel like it was rushed out the door. It feels like there are a couple of things that are well thought out in the main story, which I'm not going to point out any specifics. You'll know when you get there because, the mission just won't go the regular way a mission does, as in loading screen, do things for 5 minutes, loading screen, and then back around on the crazy merry-go-round of do things. So the one thing that really did aggravate me with the missions, though, is this whole tombs grind thing. So at roughly 8 hours into the experience, 10 hours for me because I'm slow and ponderous with these things, you end up at a point at which NPCs are no longer giving you missions. You exhaust all the ones on your map, and then you're like, okay, what are we off to do next? As it ends up, you gotta pull open your codex, which is not immediately apparent, but is easy enough to figure out if you're not a complete person like me. Anywho, moving along, you have to go and you have to access 4 tombs. And to access these 4 tombs, you have to do various things throughout the world within free play. It's more or less like the game shoving you into free play and saying, hey, go have free play for a little while. Now, it's also worth noting that if you got the game via the Origin Premier Basic, you get exactly 10 hours of play on the game without having to, prior to the game releasing. And this whole thing arrives at hour 8, hour 10, somewhere in there. It almost seems like the Tomb Grind was put in there as a way to cause or compel individuals with Origin Premier Basic to upgrade their Origin Premier membership so as to get a hold of more content. If so, that's a little janky. If it was an intended part and the game just doesn't explain itself really well, okay, I absolutely get that. I mean, I do think that it's good to kind of nudge a player in directions you want them to go with respect to what they're doing, what you would like them to do. I think it's another thing entirely to basically leave them hanging with nothing on their map, and the idea that, okay, up until this point I've been given missions and told, hey, go over here and defend this thing or turn this thing on, and now all of a sudden you just kind of, I don't know, it feels like you're left floating out there and like the story majorly drops off. Now after the Tombs Grind, things pick back up and it's all happy-go-lucky. Talk to NPC, do really good thing for really good reason, and receive trinket at the end of it. Now, looking around to the other large item of needs improvement, I don't feel that the experience between Fort Tarsus and the Javelin area has a tie that binds the two of them together. Tarsus is very slow and ponderous. You walk slowly, you look slowly, you're more or less disembodied. There's no HUD, there's no nothing. There's not even really any design language within Fort Tarsus that points out that you are in fact on the same planet as when you're in your Javelin out being around. Now, by context, we have Tarsus being slow and ponderous. Your Javelins, on the other hand, are fast, they're fluid, they're powerful. So I can understand kind of a dichotomy here where when you're not in your suit, you're just a regular old pleb wandering around, but when you're in your suit, you're like Iron Man with a machine gun, and it's absolutely fantastic. That being said, though, I don't really feel that the two of them integrate with each other to such a great extent as to cause a believable experience. I suspect that if you were to take somebody and drop them into Fort Tarsus and let them run around for 20 minutes and say, hey, this is Anthem, what's your first 20-minute impression? And you were to do the same with somebody except put them out there in their Javelin, I think you would end up getting 2 entirely different looks and viewpoints on the game. So in summary here, I think that Anthem presents at the moment a very solid core experience. Now, I don't think that solid core experience is something that is worthy or conveys the amount of value that one would typically receive with a $60 AAA purchase, which is why my recommendation is if you want to give it a try, sign up for Origin Premier for a month, which depending on your locality, $15-16 will get it done for you. Jump into the game, play it for 15 or 20 hours, at which point I feel that, yeah, okay, for $15 and 20 hours, yeah, that would be a fairly good purchase, fairly good gaming dollar spent for the amount that you're getting back. Really looking down the road, I think that the game itself needs to be filled out, it needs to be extended, it needs to be tied together and integrated better, more or less to just make the thing feel like one cohesive, solid, reasonable, relatable experience. So now the game does have a few blemishes in there, technically speaking, but it's really nothing that a few patches can't fix, and I would expect to see those patches coming down the road. So yeah, all in all, I would say keep an eye on the game if you're not convinced. If you are convinced, go out and spend the 15 bucks, try it for a month and see what you think. I would absolutely not recommend diving out and paying full $60 for it. There's just not enough content here to satisfy that. Well, that's about all I got to say on Anthem at this point. I will catch you boys and girls again soon. As always, thank you for your time, and if I missed anything or you'd like me to comment on anything additionally Anthem related, please feel free to throw them in the comments down below, and I will catch up with you down there. Have a great day.